Yes, once again, welcome my P5 learners. Okay? Yes, this is still teacher Kagans Moses, Social Studies. Okay? And I hope you enjoy my lessons. Okay? Here, this pandemic brought all this, and therefore, we can't just sit back. We need to proceed. We need to change with the change. Okay? When change comes, you don't need to resist, but you need to find the solutions of how you can continue moving. Therefore, I still encourage you to follow closely these lessons because they are going to help us to continue from where we stopped. And you never know, we may continue like this, okay? Because we don't know when this coronavirus, this COVID-19 pandemic is going to end. Therefore, it's very important to adjust, to change, and we move, okay? And we move together. Therefore, let me request you to settle down. If you have been watching a television, it's time for our lesson, and therefore switch off all those gadgets that can interfere with your attention, okay? Take just 1 minute, settle down, pick a book where you feel like you have to note down something, okay? Pick a pencil and sit somewhere where you can't get inconvenienced, okay? Yes, I think everyone is ready now, and it's time to move. So in the previous lesson, yes, you can remind me what we were looking at, okay? Yes, is there someone who remembers? Yes, quickly I can see somebody smiling, a clear sign to show that, yeah. Then some are checking in the books. That's very bad. You always need to put something in your brain, okay? Always pay attention and get to understand, put information in your brain, because we can't keep referring to what we wrote down. Therefore, I remember I left you with some activity, very simple activity, and I promised when I come back, we shall begin from there by going through to help our friends who might have messed up. Therefore, this is our activity. Number 1 was talking about which type of climate is experienced around hilly or mountainous areas, okay? So quickly, this is mountain or mountain climate. Number 2, mention the type of rainfall that is received around mountains. I remember we talked about relief rainfall. Question 3, why does Kasese district receive relief rainfall? Okay, so Kasese district is a mountainous area, or it is near Mount Rwenzori. Those are the responses that you can give. Then question 4, give a reason why Kabale is cooler than Kampala. Why is Kabale cooler than Kampala? So in terms of altitude, okay, we defined altitude in our previous lessons, okay? So in terms of altitude, Kabale is on a higher altitude than Kampala. Alternatively, you can say Kampala is on a lower altitude than Kabale. So meaning the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, and the lower you go, the hotter it becomes, okay? Yes, our number 5, mention the type of coffee that is commonly grown on the slopes of volcanoes. So this is Arabica coffee. Can we move together? Can you spell the word Arabica? Arabica, capital A-R-A-B-I-C-A. Arabica, okay? Take note of the spelling. It is very important. Then question 6, which factor favors the rearing of animals in mountainous areas? I remember we talked about the cool temperatures, and these cool temperatures support dairy farming, okay? So this was our work for last time. Let me hope you did it so well. May I see the hands up for those ones who got everything? Yes, I see somebody smiling. Say, yeah, I gave this work a bloody nose. Keep up, okay? For those ones who messed up, please endeavor to write the corrections and write them so neatly, okay? I love neat work. Is that okay? Yes. So we can proceed for today's lesson. Oh, sorry about that. We have also some questions here that I had not gone through. Okay. So number 7 is talking about why is tourism common around mountainous areas. We said mountainous areas have beautiful features. Then quickly number 8, which side of the mountain receives A, plenty of rainfall, that's the windward side. B, little or no rainfall, that's the leeward side. We talked about that. What is the relationship between altitude and temperature in mountainous areas? Remember, we said the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, and the lower you go, the hotter it becomes. So what is the relationship? I don't expect somebody to tell me temperature is a sister to altitude. No, that's not the relationship we are talking about. The relationship is temperature reduces as altitude increases. So in a mountainous area, as the temperature reduces, it means the altitude is increasing. Likewise, when temperature increases, altitude, can somebody summarize that? When temperature increases, altitude decreases, okay? Or altitude reduces. So it is two-way traffic. When altitude increases, the temperature reduces. And as the altitude reduces, the temperature increases. Is that okay? So I was talking about our today's lesson, and in this lesson, we are going to look at the factors. We are going to look at how climate influences. Sorry about that. We are going to look at the factors that influence the climate of Uganda. Factors that influence the climate of Uganda. The word influence means a change. Okay? In other words, what are those factors that make different areas experience different climate? What could be those factors that make different areas in Uganda to have or to experience different types of climate? Okay? There should be a reason. There should be some factors that bring changes in climate in different areas. Okay? So when we say to influence, it means a change. Or we can say which factors affect the climate of Uganda. So to affect, that is also to bring a change. And therefore, by the end of this lesson, I expect everyone to identify the factors that influence the climate of an area. Then 2, I expect you to state how different factors influence the climate of Uganda. Then 3, to mention the physical features that influence climate of Uganda. Okay? So you can take 1 minute and think through what are those physical features that can bring a change in the climate of Uganda. Remember, when we talk about climate, we are meaning rainfall and temperature. Okay? So what are those physical features? What are those features that bring a change in the climate of Uganda? Okay? So as we proceed in our first session, we are going to talk about factors that influence the climate of Uganda. So which factors make climate different in different areas? We have realized different parts of Uganda experience different types of climate, or they have different climatic regions. So what are those things? What are those factors that cause that? So can you think of 2? Okay, think of 2 factors that can bring a change in the climate. Okay, just 2 like this. Yes, what have you come up with? All right, I believe you might have come up, you might have mentioned some of these. Okay, so one of the factors that can cause a change or that can influence the climate of Uganda is altitude. Everyone say altitude. Can you spell this word altitude? Altitude. A-L-T-I-T-U-D-E. Altitude. And we said altitude is the height above the sea level. Altitude is the height above the sea level. Okay? Sea level meaning this ground where you walk from, okay? That is the sea level. So whenever you go higher, it means you are increasing on the altitude, okay? Then another factor is human activities. Human activities also cause a change in the climate of an area. We have the vegetation cover. This one also causes a change. Distance from water bodies. Then we have latitude. Latitude means the same as distance from the equator, okay? Then we have prevailing winds. All these ones cause a change in the climate of Uganda, okay? So, in our session 2, we want to see the ways in which the different factors that we have seen influence the climate. We want to see the ways in which the different factors we have seen above there cause a change in the climate, cause a change in the rainfall patterns, okay? Therefore, why do you think different areas in Uganda experience different types of climate? Why do you think different areas in Uganda experience different types of climate? Okay? Have you ever thought about that? Yes. If yes, well and good. If not, then we are going to realize that in this lesson, okay? All those factors we have seen in our first session cause changes. So it depends on which factor exists in which area, okay? So that factor can influence or can cause a change in the climate of that area. Therefore, I believe you have come up with such ideas. So our heading says ways in which different factors influence the climate of an area. And the very first one is altitude. Remember I said this is the height above the sea level, okay? So how does altitude affect the climate of an area? Or how does altitude influence the climate of an area, okay? So areas on a high altitude are cool. Those areas on a high altitude are cool. Then you find areas on low altitude are hot. Areas on a low altitude are hot. So it depends. I want you to experiment this. One day go and stand on a flat, okay? Go and stand on a flat. Experience which temperature is there. Is it? Then you come and compare. When you're just on the ground, where do you feel colder and where do you feel hotter? Okay? So you realize as you go higher, okay, the temperatures are cool. Then as you go lower, the temperatures become hotter or warmer. Okay? Therefore, this is the change that altitude brings in the climate. It affects the temperatures. So areas on a high altitude are cool. Areas on a low altitude are hot. So when, for instance, you asked, how does altitude affect the climate of an area? You can choose to use one alternative. You can either say areas on a high altitude are cool or areas on a low altitude are hot. So the second factor there is that of the human activities, okay? People carry out various human activities and all these ones can also bring a change in the climate of an area. They can cause a place either to receive rainfall or to experience drought, okay? So we can say some human activities modify climate, meaning they improve. This word modify means improving. In other words, if we're receiving little rainfall, then we get to experience high rainfall. So we are saying some human activities modify the climate. Then alternatively, some human activities destroy the climate. Can you think of those human activities that can modify or can improve on the climate? Yes, you realize one of them is afforestation. You can talk about agroforestry. You can talk about reforestation. You can talk about swamp reclamation, okay? Have you ever thought of the reason as to why the government is struggling to evict those people who settled in wetlands? Yes, let me hope where you live isn't a wetland, okay? Because that one will be destroying our environment, will be destroying our climate. So you want ambassador now to spread this information. That's very bad to settle in a wetland. Reason? It leads to drought because these wetlands help in the formation of rainfall. Therefore, it is not very good for us to settle there, okay? Then, what are those activities that destroy the climate, okay? So you realize we have activities like swamp drainage. Those people who go and settle in the swamps. Remember, swamp is the same as a wetland. So when you settle there, you clear away the swamp, we shall not have that water that promotes evaporation, okay? Then, talk about deforestation. We have people who massively cut down our trees. Remember, these trees help us promote transpiration in the rain cycle. And therefore, do you think this is a good activity? I think no, because as keep carrying out deforestation, it leads to drought. And remember, we need rainfall, okay, to support our plant growth and other activities, okay? Then bush burning. There are people who carry out bush burning. This is also very dangerous to our climate. And therefore, you must advise such people, okay, to stop it because it brings us bad effects, okay? Yes, we can proceed. Another factor here is that of the vegetation cover. How does the vegetation cover influence or bring a change in the climate of Uganda? So you realize areas with thick vegetation receive plenty of rainfall. Then guess what happens to those areas with scattered vegetation? So areas with scattered vegetation receive little rainfall. That's why the government is encouraging people to preserve the forests that we have and also to plant more trees such that we can promote the formation of rainfall, okay? Therefore, it depends. Still here, when you ask, for instance, how does vegetation cover influence the climate of an area? You can choose to use one alternative. You can say areas with thick vegetation receive plenty of rainfall, okay? Or areas with scattered vegetation receive little rainfall. Are we still together? Yes. Give your neighbor high five, okay? Yes, let me also give mine high five, neighbor, okay? Yes, I think we can proceed. Another factor is that of latitude, and we said latitude means the distance from the equator, okay? The distance in the north or south of the equator, okay? So this one also affects the climate in a way that areas near the equator are hot. Areas near the equator are hot. Somebody can ask him or herself, why are those areas hot? So areas near the equator experience direct heat or direct sun rays. Rays as in R-A-Y-S, okay? So they can, for instance, ask you, why are areas around the equator very hot? Very simple. These areas experience direct heat or direct sun rays, okay? So latitude affects our climate in a way that areas near the equator are hot, or areas far away from the equator are cool. Are we together? Yes, we can continue. We can look at this factor about distance from water bodies. How does it bring a change in our climate? Okay? How does it bring a change in the climate of the areas where we stay? Okay? So you realize areas near the water bodies receive heavy rainfall. You can ask yourself why. Why do areas near a water body experience heavy rainfall? Remember, in P4 you learned that these water bodies promote evaporation, okay? So the nearer the person is, or the nearer you are, okay, the more chances the nearer you are to a water body, the high chances of getting a high rate of evaporation. Then, when you're far away from this water body, automatically even the level of evaporation will reduce. And therefore, what does it mean? A reduction in the amount of rainfall. Is that okay? So if you asked why, how does distance from water body affect the climate of Uganda? Two alternatives: areas near the water bodies receive heavy rainfall, or areas far away from the water bodies receive little. Areas near the water bodies receive heavy rainfall, or areas far away from water bodies receive little rainfall. Then prevailing winds, we have prevailing winds. So these are seasonal winds that blow towards a given direction at a particular time. So these prevailing winds, we have two types of prevailing winds, and one, we have the warm west winds. So the warm west winds bring rainfall, or warm west wind brings rainfall. Guess what happens to the dry winds? Okay? So you realize the dry winds bring no or little rainfall. Okay? So they can, for instance, ask you, how do prevailing winds affect the climate of an area? Two alternatives. Okay? Warm, moist winds bring rainfall. Then dry winds bring little or no rainfall. Okay? So we can proceed to our session 3, where we are going to talk about physical features that influence the climate. Okay? So I want you to think about those physical features that you think can lead to changes in the climate of an area. Okay? Yes, just 30 seconds I think are enough. Okay? Yes, well. So I believe you have come up with the following. 1, we have the mountains, we have the water bodies, we have the plains. Okay? All these affect the climate of an area. They bring a change. Okay? So as we wind up, I have some activity, very simple, okay, that you sit down properly and write neatly, okay? Therefore, I thank you for listening. That's our activity for today. Stay safe, stay home.